Rudy Nieto, CEO of Mavsign. Joining me today is our esteemed guest, Terry Shabasta. He is not only the chairman of the New Vehicle Leasing Association, a very influential group in North America. He is also the co-founder and CEO of FlexPath Veriqual, and he is joining us out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Rudy.
And Terry is upset with me. I told him I was going to wear a tie on my head in honor of his dress code. So I did bring my bow tie.
There we go.
But I don't want to distract y'all from some really important stuff we have to talk about today, because we're not just talking about. We're not just talking about fraud, Terry. We're talking about some fraud that honestly I didn't know was even happening, and it's happening like 24/7 nonstop. Like while we're talking right now, pretty much every dealer's got somebody that's going after him. So we're going to get to that in a minute, because that was, that's why we do these sessions. This is not a product pitch for my company. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in fraud, because the bad guys keep kind of coming up with new schemes. So Terry, let's start off. Maybe tell us a quick background of you and how you've gotten to this point, and then I think the first thing I do want to ask you about is AFS. So we'll get to that in a minute, but just give a quick bio, and don't tell them you're a Bengals fan. That's not very popular right now.
Yeah, no, and I don't think we have enough time to go to 35 years of what I've been doing in this industry. But anyway, so Friday is I have a weekly recess club lunch here at the Queen City Club in Cincinnati. It's coat and tie every Friday, bow tie Friday, first Friday of every month. So anyway, that's why I'm dressed up. I am in a coat and tie a lot, but anyway, so yeah, fraud. It's wow. There's a lot to talk about that. I am a lender, I'm a dealer, and I'm a fintech creator. So I basically encompass virtually everything that everybody's doing and can see all sides of what's happening out there in the marketplace. And I can tell you, as you mentioned, Rudy, since the time we just a minute, 2 minutes ago, things are already progressing. So we'll talk about Auto Finance Summit, Experian, Vision, and all that, because there's some common themes there. But I'm speaking in the next couple of weeks at Dealer Connect, Used Car Week, and that. And they're like, well, can you get me your PowerPoint, your presentation? I'm like, yeah, no, not until like 5 minutes before I go on, because it's changing that fast, right? What's happening in fraud prevention, they don't, like you said, they don't sleep, because AI is now teaching AI. So it's ridiculous what's going on in the marketplace, and there's a lot to talk about. But I've been around a long time, but we'll leave it at that.
Great, yeah, you are a legend. So let's start off with AFS. I unfortunately couldn't make it last week. I know we had a presence there, you had a presence there. For those of you that don't know, it's the Auto Finance Summit put on by Royal Media. They do 2 a year, one in Nashville, one in Vegas usually. And I guess I have my perspectives on what the lenders were talking about this year and what they were coming to find and what they went home with. What did you see that you can tell a lot about what their pains are by the questions they're asking, right? So what did you see them coming to learn more about and get better about, and what do you think they walked away with? And then we'll obviously hit the elephant in the room, tricolor, in a sec.
Yeah, well, so since AFSA, it started in AFSA in the beginning of the year in New Orleans. Those who could make it and trudge through the snow, which I did. It started there. And what we saw there through Autovate, through Experian Vision, through Auto Finance Summit was common themes. AI is one of them, obviously.
Sure.
But the other two, fraud prevention and consumer affordability, right? With the rates and everything and the vehicle prices, consumer affordability. But fraud lacks, actually at Auto Finance Summit, it was almost virtually every single session touched on fraud. Okay. And it's not about, fraud prevention. And of course, we talk about the Fraudstack, and it's not one company. So we're not here to promote any one particular company, because it's not one company can solve the problem that we're dealing with fraud. And because it's happening so fast, we need a layered approach. So the more layers of fraud prevention you have, the better off you are. And each company specializes in each pieces of the fraud. So, but at these different events that we've been visiting and attending, fraud prevention is now becoming top priority. And we'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about the public service announcement we launched a couple months ago on a fraud issue that we discovered, and that still a lot of people don't even know about. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think this is like it's not the elephant in the room, because now everybody's beginning to be like, oh my gosh, there's some issues here. And if you look at Auto Finance Summit, the lenders, and we've been talking about this, need to take more proactive role in helping dealers with the fraud prevention, because they're the ones who actually see a lot of it. And in one of the seminars, and I cut me off if I'm going too long here, Rudy, because I could talk about this for hours, but one of the sessions talked about the lender's portfolio. And in the past, it was what was our slow pays, right? Or charge-offs. It was all about people that couldn't pay or bad credit. Not anymore. Now, fraud has become a major part of that portfolio charge-off, where it wasn't known before. Now you've got charge-offs because of credit now, and you also have charge-offs because of fraud, right? I think you're seeing this. Anyway, I'll stop there.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the charge-offs could correct. Also, I would say the charge-offs due to credit could be a result of a fraud that, might not be something we've even thought about yet. Like if somebody says, oh, I meant to put a period there instead of a zero when they're talking about income, oops, like, was that a fraud or is that a credit issue? So I think there's a combination of things. So okay, so you're a lender really quick. I'm gonna have you put your lender hat on just super fast. I'm curious, how would you suggest, if a lender's watching this, how would you approach the dealer issue when they're, when the dealer agreements clearly say, if you've not done your job to prevent fraud, if you've been negligent, right? Like, and there's basic ITTP you can do, red flags, out of wallet, banks tell people if you do it offsite, you got to use Mavsign as an example or whatever. But so how do you view that conversation going down? You're not a captive, you're a bank, and you've got to go tell the dealer, like, you didn't do your job and you got to go eat this. Just how does that go?
Okay, so that's an interesting topic, because at AFS, in one of the sessions, we had a dealer, and we don't need to talk about it.
Nameless.
Right. And they were like, you know what? We check off all the boxes. We do everything that we need to do. And if there's a fraud, we're not responsible. The lender can't come back to us because we've checked all the boxes. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, it's a fraud deal. You checked all the boxes. Okay, what does that tell me? The boxes need to be updated.
We need more boxes. Yeah. Well, I think that's on the lender too, right? Like the lender needs to know, okay, well, you did everything we told you to do.
You did everything. You did everything we told you to do, but we still had a fraud deal because we didn't know. Ding, ding, ding. Right? You didn't do. There's things that the lenders need to get in front of to help. And it's not about lender versus dealer. And again, I'm a lender, I'm a dealer, and I'm a fintech software provider. But it wasn't about us against them, right? When we talk, so a lot of lenders on those different sessions, captives, independents, right? And it wasn't about, oh, we need to it wasn't about us against them. It was all of us working together, right? We need to work together as an industry to fight fraud, because if you go silo, you're going to lose. I promise you,
Yeah.
you will lose. So we've got to work together, lenders, dealers, and lenders need to take the first role in identifying products and fraud prevention that can help the dealers, because and it's not about you creating everything, right? You're not going to create everything. And anybody, and I'll just say this right now, if you're a lender or a dealer and somebody comes to you and says, hey, we have everything, here's the box, we got it all, we can protect you against all the fraud. If that happens, you need to just turn around, walk the other way, and look at something else, because they're not being honest with you. Okay. And that's the problem with this industry. We need to work together. One solution does not solve it all. There are different solutions. You're one solution. We're one solution. It's about the Fraudstack. And I've talked about this previously about it. And I'm a member of the InfraGard, which is the FBI InfraGard. And I actually recommend, and that you join as an individual, not as a company. I recommend people join that association, that organization.
What's it called again, Terry?
InfraGard, INFRAGARD. It's an FBI organization. You join as an individual. Now, I also have background. I'm a member of the FBI Citizens Academy, an alumni of that, board member of the Cincinnati Citizens Police Association. That's an interesting, that we won't even get into that. And you can't even look it up and find it. It's been around since the 50s. Anyway, let's get back to fraud prevention. So again, it's not about one product providing the solution. And the solutions you have today, tomorrow, they're going to be like, oh, there's some holes. It's about constant monitoring and updating what you're doing. And, think about this. It's hard enough for lenders, dealers. It's like, really? I'm so busy writing deals and working deals and getting cars over the curb. Fraud. And unfortunately, what happens, a lot of times there's nobody in the dealership that's monitoring this or that's in charge of this. And the salespeople are like, wow, here's a great, easy deal that just came in. If it's that easy, you better take another look at it.
Yep. I think that's all. I think everybody's probably nodding their head behind the screen. I just break it down to a binary kind of reasoning, and it's like, okay, so say there is a fraud and we didn't have enough boxes. So let's say the dealer did check all the boxes, okay, and the dealer feels like they did right, okay. If the bank says you have to eat it, then that bank probably is not going to do business with that dealer anymore, right?
Right. It doesn't mean about the boxes you chop.
Yeah, and if the bank says, you know what, don't worry, you're a good partner, we'll eat it. Well, then their cost of their lending costs just went up, right? Which means higher rates, which means less affordability. So it's like, why not kind of, I hate to say shoot the hostage, let's fix the problem. We got to get the right boxes and we got to have the right workflow, and then this gets better. So I think we all can kind of like put a bow in that, and no pun intended, and we can just agree on that. So all right, you have something specifically that I want to talk about, and it's kind of this little secret that you've kind of uncovered. Talk to me about your PSA, and just give the group some insight on what's happening on their websites right now that is probably going undetected.
Yeah, and it's kind of, it's not embarrassing, but it was a previous product that we had, and I'm not going to name any names, both product or dealer, okay, throughout what I'm about to tell you. We put out a PSA, which is a public service announcement about a particular web app, a pre-qualification web app that collects name and address and phone number and email. Now, that's virtually every single legacy app that's in the marketplace right now. And again, I'm not naming names, but if you go to your website right now and you click on a pre-qualification, I want to get pre-qualified or It's really pre-qualified, not even pre-approved, but I want to get pre-qualified. Check it out. What is it asking you for to get pre-qualified? Name, address, phone number, email, possibly and if it's really old, it's asking for a social security number and date of birth, which nobody's going to give you that. So if you've got that, you really are like years behind, because you get bad credit customers, but you're not going to get any good credit customers, which means you're losing the majority of the people that could potentially pre-qualify for the vehicle that you're promoting. So what we found, just simply, I was on an email chain, again, previous product, we're not going to name names. And what we found was that within a very few minutes, at 2:00 in the morning, over 200 pre-qualification requests were submitted, okay, from all over the country to this one dealer, okay. Okay, that's weird. Real names, real addresses, phone numbers, okay. And this product, and most products out there on pre-qualification, you enter that information and the customer gets, or just hey, you're pre-qualified or you're not. Okay. If you're pre-qualified, great. Let's go to the next step. Well, what was happening was these hundreds of names and addresses, phone numbers that were being submitted, when the decision came back that name, address, phone number, email, whatever is pre-qualified, that fraudster that was submitting those now knows that Rudy's information is qualified. Now I can go out here and buy something with that information. It validated that name and address and phone number to be able to know that that's a qualified customer, that now I can use that in a fraud. Now, here's the problem. Did it happen? Was there a fraud that was committed against the dealer? No, they weren't buying a car. They were just determining whether they were qualified or not. So the dealers and all these legacy apps, these legacy pre-qual apps, all of them. I mean,
they're basically fraud incubators. They're like fraud incubators, is what I think.
Oh my gosh, I love that term, fraud incubator. Okay, can I steal that? Anyway, yeah.
Fraud, I'm going to come up with a cool word and trademark that one.
No. That's a great term, fraud incubator. Oh my gosh, that is cool. So anyway, that's what happened. All right. So, so how do you fix that? Right. You have to change the way you're doing pre-quals. And as a lender, I learned early on that in order to fix that problem, we had to change that. And I won't get into, you can ask me about it later, but VeriQual is the product that we created that takes the phone number and does the one-time passcode to do the pre-qualification. We're the only one doing, I'm not going to say we're the only one doing that. We're the only one that does it the way we do it. And we have a patent pending on that. But anyway, the pre-qual with OTP is the first step. It's not the full solution. It's the first step.
Got it. So basically the takeaway is like, yeah, I mean, my exposure is way more downstream, but you're saying if you're a dealer, even if you've got great protocols downstream in the process, if you're not being a good steward on your website, with the pre-qual, you could essentially be aiding and abetting. Well, that's a little severe, but you could be helping the bad guys do something harmful to somebody else potentially. So,
but here's the thing about that. Now that we put out that public service announcement, you can't say, "Oh, I didn't know." Too late.
Right.
So, we're working with, and I'm not going to name them, but different federal agencies on this to try to help dealers and lenders understand what's going on out there. But it's no longer a head in the sand. I didn't know about it. The public service announcement's out there. It's public. It's happening right now. And all of these web apps that are collecting name and address, phone number, email, whatever, you're liable. If something happens and the consumer comes back, it's not about just the monetary liability. It's your reputation that's also on the line. And that's the biggest thing, because we do this Fraudstack Monday where we talk about all these problems and fraud that's happening. if your dealer is involved in a fraud, or you're a lender and you're involved in, it's your reputation.
Yeah. So let me confirm here. So let's say somebody uses my website as a fraud incubator. You're saying they could, and there's a fraud committed somewhere else, and then the person that got defrauded raises a stink and starts doing investigations. You're saying that they could forensically trace that back to the dealer who had a loose website? Wow,
I promise you will be brought into the lawsuit. There's no question about
it. Oof. All right, so takeaway. You don't need to buy any of our products, but you should all go look at your prequel on your website.
Yeah. And you know that the CAPTCHA, all those, the CAPTCHA thing. Yeah, the CAPTCHA, that's don't even think about putting CAPTCHA in, because that's a non-starter, right? You've really
I love the little puzzle thing. I like the puzzle pieces you slide. Those are more fun.
You know what? No? AI is better at solving that than we are.
I know. I'm like,
we won't even get into AI. Let's not even get into AI, because that's a whole. That was another.
I think everybody's beginning to learn that our challenge with AI is that, we are leveraging AI as part of what we do, obviously, because we're being prudent. But the bad guys can be very reckless with it, and they don't care. And so they're gonna natively have a bigger advantage. The more we trust AI to do our jobs, it actually plays into their hands in a lot of ways, which I don't know if we all are thinking about. Like, great, this makes my life easy. It's kind of like all the people that put all their internal dirty laundry on ChatGPT and don't realize that that's actually going somewhere else, right? So yeah, it's a little scary. So wow. Okay. All right. So I wanted to touch. We're running out of time. I wanted to touch really quick on your responsibility at MVLA.
I thought this was like a 3-hour thing we were doing.
We could talk about this for 3 hours. I think now that I've told every dealer that they've got a problem, we might have to do another one of these to answer questions. But I did want to touch really quick on NVLA and what you do there and why you feel that's important. And I do think that is an the Vehicle Leasing Association. It is in a way indirectly representing the traditional franchise automotive dealerships, because they're getting the cars from the dealers, and they have, we do hear a lot of complaints from dealers about bad brokers, good brokers, etc. You've had some personal involvement with one of those situations. So what do you feel like, we won't spend a ton of time on this, but what's your kind of mission to go help NVLA? Like, what are you going to try to accomplish for them?
Yeah, so NVLA, National Vehicle Leasing Association, I'm president for the second time. I've been a member since 2000, on the board of 04, so I've been around a long time. It's a great organization, and those who are not familiar with it, all I'm going to say is, if you're involved in leasing a vehicle, captive, lender, dealer, or a supporting vendor, you need to be involved, okay? We have a lot of independent leasing companies that are members. We're expanding that into education programs for franchise dealers. Again, on the fraud side, is very important on that. It's funny, Rudy, because I'll go to a dealer and I'll say, "What's your lease penetration?" And what's the average? 24%. And I say, well, if your lease penetration is not at least 85%, we have a problem. Now, everybody that's listening is like, what? 85%. If it's not 85%, we need to have a conversation. I've been leasing cars since the 90s. I've gone through 2 residual crashes and worked with, we were US Bank's largest leasing dealer at one point. So I know leasing inside and out. It's probably the best tool for a consumer. And we probably should have another conversation about that and talk about leasing, and how that attacks the fraud. But we're not going to get into that. But NVLA is about educating independents, dealers, lenders about the benefits and why leasing is important in our marketplace. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I guess what I wanted to touch on, because we just got talking, we got done talking about the hard conversations between lenders and dealers. But in this case, if I'm a leasing association, I have essentially acquired the car right from the dealer, and I am kind of the bank, so to speak, in this conversation. And if a fraud gets past me, if I'm not mistaken, I'm kind of the, I'm on both sides of it in reality, because the consumer's in the car. If the car's gone, I'm holding it. Like, so I feel like it's even almost double jeopardy for a leasing company if there's a mistake, with fraud after they've placed that purchase.
Yeah, and it's not just on the consumer side. So what we're learning is these synthetic IDs are being created and all that on the consumer side. They're also being created on the business side, right? Commercial side. There are companies that are set up that are created just to defraud multiple vehicles, right? Because when you're a company, you're buying three. Most of the business that most of our independent leasing companies do are small to medium sized companies that we service on the leasing side. And on average, they might be purchasing 3 to 5 vehicles at a time. So if you set up, and what we're finding, and this is what we learned. I learned this at the Experian Vision event, that now these fraudsters are setting up these fake companies, right? And they're coming in and buying cars in volume, and it's all fraud.
Wow. I mean, it seems simple enough just to be vigilant, but it's amazing. It's amazing. I already said fraud incubator, but I also like the term commission bias. It's like the person that's the closest to the deal usually has the highest bias commission wise, which is kind of not what you want. You kind of like to have somebody pretty close to that deal having the note card saying, okay, well, let's just think about this for a minute. And I just think that's the way we've kind of created the business. So that's some scary stuff. Okay, so we're going to open this up to questions in a sec, but if you got questions on like what we found at AFS and kind of our concept of the Fraudstack and what's happening and how that's evolving, or if you want to talk about how dealers' websites are being used as fraud incubators, and apparently we got a lot more exposure than I realized 30 minutes ago, or if you want to talk about leasing and MBLA, please put your questions out in the chat, and our folks at Freddie Media will be popping those up for any questions for me or Terry. Sounds like they're going to be more for Terry, but would love to hear any questions or concerns that the audience has for the time being. So I'm not seeing it. Yeah, so, I see Robert Johnson. I see Jay. No questions. What else did you have, Terry?
What was that?
Did you have a question for me, Terry?
No, actually, I was going to mention something from, I think it was Experian event, and that here's one thing I'll say: get involved in these different industry events. You will learn more than you ever thought you could, and it's real time. You're talking to people like back and forth. You're solving. You're trying. Well, you expose problems, and then you try to. Okay, I didn't know you had that problem, and you could start solving problems. If depending on how many questions we get and how long this goes, I'm going to leave you with one tidbit of advice that I got from one of the events. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So what we found was, and I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you one example and then one that will tie into what I'm about to say. The one example was I got an email, or no, I got a text message from my local, and I'm not even going to say what make and model it was. Okay, I got a text message from a local service OEM service that I had my vehicle in for service, and that the invoice was $3,500. Just click here, pay it, and you can pick up your car. First of all, I was like, okay, not sure about that. Did I? Yeah, I had my car. Nah, that doesn't make any sense. So I forwarded it to our CFO, and I said, what's up with this? And they said, I don't know, but you're driving the car. So I'm like, You're right. I'm driving the car. So, because it said pay this and you could pick up your car. It had my car, the VIN, the service advisor's name that I normally use, all together in this email. Click, pay, pick up your car. Now, that
Oh,
was
wow.
that was really like, okay. And here's what else I learned. You may get a call from a family member, a frantic call. Hey, Rudy, I just was in an accident. I need you to send, 500,000, whatever the money is. Send it to, I'm going to send you a link. Send it to me. I'm in big trouble, whatever that trouble could be, right? Rudy's like, oh my gosh, I got to do this, right? Okay. It's a family member. They're on the phone. They're talking to you.
Yep.
It's AI. It's AI.
Yes. Synthetic voice. Yep.
This is the best free advice you are ever going to get. And we've already implemented this. And at this session, she said, anybody in your family should have a secret code. So if I'm frantic and I call Rudy, you got to send me $1,000. Rudy says, what's our family code? Stops right there. If they don't know the code, the family code, or whatever code you put in place, we did that. We put that in place in our family now. So if they don't know that code, guess what? Could be fraud. Probably is fraud. So if you don't learn anything else from what we talked about, implement a family code. Please.
Okay.
Please do that.
Good to know. Good to know. Okay. Well, I don't see any real questions. We see a lot of attaboys and high fives. That's great. So it sounds like we got a lot of value out of this conversation. For those of you that are watching this after the fact, if you need to ask us some questions for myself or Terry, please add that to the comments, and then we'll be monitoring that after this is live. And we'll be putting it uploading it back to LinkedIn and YouTube and Insta, and then we can answer those questions for you directly. But I think with that, I'm going to wish everybody a happy Friday. Now, I will tell you, we actually have another Fraudcast coming up really quickly that Terry is going to watch next week in honor of Freaky Friday. I could not miss the opportunity to do a Fraudcast on Freaky Friday. There's too many F's in there. And so we'll be doing a special guest next Friday, another expert in fraud, ex-Air Force Carl Falk from BotDoc, who has been a friend of mine for a while in the industry, and he is very passionate about fighting fraud. I'm not sure what costumes we're going to be wearing. That's still up for discussion. So if anybody's got costume ideas, I'm open for that. But fun next week. And as we do always, I really identify what's happening with fraud and make sure everybody has good information on how to protect themselves, whether it's a family code or a solution or what have you. So Carl and I will be jamming out Friday. Please make sure you plan to join that one. Dress up is optional, and maybe somebody will be impersonating some fraudsters if I could give you a little hint. So with that, thank you all for joining. And as I always like to sign off, be a maverick.
Awesome. Thank you.